research and project attitude. All of the others imagined evolutions of the great city. So they responded differently to the question of how to make of this huge entity, this huge unit, something more unified, something that works as a whole. And behind that, they always had in mind a client that would be the simple user of the little pavilion, the little house next door, the white collar, the blue collars, like here, the political actors, the mayors, the president himself, and so on. This is how I understand the relation between, if ever, 100 years later, one writes the history of this consultation under the hypothesis that this consultation is a way to describe the visible-invisible hand theory, then they would take these plans and they would again analyze them as to how much they correspond, how they correspond to models of city development with respect to different groups of people commissioning them. We're in the very beginning of the story. We don't even know how it's going to go for the future, in the future, since mainly the cities this is getting into a crisis, a serious crisis, the whole area, the whole region, and you will probably have to slow down a little bit its development and even revise its ambitions. But there's nothing to be, nothing of all this, none of all these plans would be thrown away, because remember, in Berlin, 1910, the project was designed, the first prize was won, then it was a 5-year war, everything was destroyed, and then back later again, 10 or 15 years later, the Greater Berlin became a reality. So it's not about thinking about now, it's just organizing ourselves for the future horizon of the city and seeing how we position ourselves in this debate. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to translate. The question is, we saw all these images are a bit cliche, like they remind a bit of Koolhaas, remind a bit of this and that. Most of the projects, says our friend, seem to be copying in one way or another previous projects. And the question is, first of all, no, it's okay. No, I agree with that. I agree. Most of them have reminded us of something. We've seen something like that before, that's for sure. So the question is obviously yes. And it's obviously yes because the time was limited, so people did not necessarily have time to invent both method and result. So it was a lot of not copying, but going back to their arsenal and to previous images that they had and working with them. In the case of Rogers, it's clear. Rogers took out of the drawers all the experience of the English planning since ever. And others did the same, more or less. And the question was if there would be a way to approach the Grand Paris from the small scale, from the scale of the everyday experience of the usual person walking, driving, and so on. The truth is that some of the architects did that. Bernardo Secchi and Paola Vigano did this, and they photographed a lot everyday situations, and the book is full of that. Others did it less. Depends on the case. For example, MVRDV didn't have any photo of anything, photographically speaking. It was only plans and graphs. That was particularly impressive. That was the most extreme case. So, of course you do. French architects did that a bit less, although, yeah, Yves Lion did that a lot as well. Yves Lion walked a lot around the area. Castro didn't have to because he has always walked a lot around the area. So some of them already knew, or at least they thought they knew. That's the problem, in fact. They thought they knew the area. So there is a lot of experiential discussion, which that doesn't necessarily bring us to solutions. There's lots of discussion and constatations. Things are. Does this bring us to an overall solution of the Greater Paris area? I would doubt. The question again is a matter of power. You guys, it's very simple. The moment you change limits of city, the moment the guy who rules changes face and mind, you cannot have any continuity. The only continuity exists through systems, continuity in movement, in fluency, in everyday experience, exists where there are over local, how do I say that? You understand what I mean? Institutions. Highways depend on the state. That's why we say interstate. Because if it was a system that depended on states, there would be no continuity. It's as simple as that. The problem with different power structures is that they always set limits. And the experience of each one of us separately is a story of limits. The limit of the kid growing up and wanting to go to school, that he doesn't have to go to step out of the pavement, of the sidewalk, the limits of your working space and all that. The only interest in having a planning attitude is that you see above the limits and you unify differentiated areas through concepts. It's exactly the problem of Christophe Colomb. You know this guy? Yeah. This guy just saw a limit. And he said, okay, let's now conceive what happens if I go straight up. I'll find the new Indias, the West Indies. Well, he found America, but that's another story. So he imagined a situation that goes against a limit situation. A project that goes, every project rearranges limits, as you know very well. Now the question is who you are arranging the limits for. And we'll never finish with this question. About engineering, I mean, the second question was how much of engineering does Greater Paris need? As much as architecture. That's my response. I mean, in any case, I don't see architecture without engineering. Architecture without engineering is not possible. And vice versa. Engineering is the way you do things. Now, what's interesting at some point is the relation between plant engineering and bricolage. What's bricolage in English? You know, do-it-yourself kind of thing. There's a very interesting text by a famous anthropologist in France, the most famous one, La pensée sauvage. Lévi-Strauss. Yes, Lévi-Strauss, where he said that in fact, the Western man, the Western thought, has moved towards the idea of planning, which needs a pre-arranged series of sets of material and pre-organizing the whole system. Now, this is the typical planning thought. And then you have the do-it-yourself situation where you do what you have around. You go there, you don't bring anything else. You just have your mind and your hands and the local materials. And you work with that. The problem with these 10 projects is that they imagine that we are still in a typical engineering planning situation, where in fact we think, I think very clearly more and more, that we have to bricoler. In French, you have to arrange ourselves. And if you arrange yourself, if you do what you have around, you probably would never have the perfect design. It's about aesthetics as well. The aesthetics of the 20s is the aesthetics of things that were absolutely of a total work of art. Whereas today, cities are a sort of mess, and you have to find aesthetics and interest in rearranging the mess. This is the kind of engineering I'm talking about. You have to be astute. Is that right? Like, swift, quick, and do things without waiting that things come and big decisions are taken and all that. Now, the mayors usually are like that, but they are at a local scale. Mayors are very, the good ones especially, are opportunistic, in fact. But when you're opportunistic in your own scale and you forget that there are people passing through you, and you have the NIMBY situation, the NIMBY attitude, that you say, no, I don't want them to. When you have 11 million people to cater for in terms of movement and everyday life, then you have to bricoler in a regional scale and rearrange your material. And this is how we don't know how to do that yet in terms of methods. That's my feeling. Yeah, they are both. I mean, they are both right. Depends where you're standing from. Usually when you're in the middle, you're attacked from both sides. People say you're not enough of this, and the others say you're not enough of that. So you don't know where to move. It depends what is the question you want to answer. If your answer is, I want people to move from point A to point B in maximum 1 hour, then you have to find a way out. If your question is, for example, depending on the series of questions you put and your attitude to resolve them. For example, it's another question. You know that in a few years, incomes will fall even more than what they are now. That people won't be able to go on holiday. That means in the area around Paris, the green areas will become leisure areas for people that cannot go to Bahamas. So you have to rearrange your way you use everyday access systems for all elderly people or for people with kids that do not have the income to take an airplane with 4 tickets to go to Greece to spend holidays. How do you do that? Again, it's a matter of scenario. That we didn't use the term scenario at all today, but it's very important. You need to have a full scenario of life. How do I get up? How do I go to school? How do I get my kids at 4 o'clock? How do I go back home? Where do I do shopping? And you organize that in a local level. If you're a normal person, you have all that around you. You have your friends, your family, and you don't need to be the Pope to understand that. So if you put many everyday life scenarios on the table, then you have a pattern, a scheme, and within with that you can work. I wonder how many local people do that. I mean, local authorities often do that, but again they do that on a scale where most, as you saw in this list, last map, this thing doesn't move anymore. Sorry. With this map with the gray scales of the region, most of the people move outside their community. So their life depends on another person's decision. That's the question. We try to respond it from the beginning. We try to show them that what they do in their little community, their little municipality, has only very limited, it's not bad, but has a limited influence on the overall scheme, on the overall pattern of life. And then there is a problem. You understand? I mean, designing space is it's a pure technique. I mean, you can design space without thinking of anything else. Just take a pencil and a paper and reorganize your thing. And little by little, you start adding up complexities, and series, levels of complexity, and then you have 1,000 people around you. You're working on the same scheme, and that's the interesting story. I mean, I'm still interested in the scheme personally. I'm not a sociologist, but I know that my scheme will be much more. You understand? Will have more patina if I work it with other people and if I know how to get them into the discussion correctly. And in fact, in the architecture schools, we don't have methods developed enough on that, since the typical architectural education, the modernist architectural education had sort of a client and an architect. The scheme was very simplified, since Le Corbusier and Gropius and all these people. So,
simple brief developing into accounts for the
yeah.
complexities and intricacies of powers and layers.
Yeah. Yeah. And we don't know, we are still into learning that. I mean, we ourselves, we are absolutely astounded by the complexity and it's like having a bicycle to go to the moon. And it looked like, my feeling is that he was more scared than timid. That the commission was too big for his shoulders. So he went very timidly into exploring situations. I think the difference between Cluj and Seki is very telling. From one hand, Seki is also going but he goes like that with an extreme knowledge of urbanism. Huge, and endless knowledge of things. Cluj goes like that, but someone is like, where am I going next? Yeah, there's a cultural gap, there's a way of seeing things in the city. I mean, there's, about that. You guys, you come from a school that has, I think, lots of resources. And you have libraries, you have, where in France it's a bit more difficult to find all these things. I mean, there's less developed these things. So you should take advantage of them. You should create a sort of a cushion of knowledge big enough so that if you fall smoothly. Otherwise, you'll fall hard and it's gonna egg your bump. similar to this competition, all analogies respected, to proportion gardée, we say it in English. Is very similar to workshop you could do with these people in any place of the world. So you have good ones and bad ones and mediocre ones. You have people that go very fast and others that go very slow at the end. And you are partly disappointed, partly surprised, partly really it's as you are expected. In that case, we knew very well. I mean, the wealth of the thing is the complexity of the whole overall pattern. It's the many ideas that fall on the table at once. So it's the wealth is that you have 10, actually 100 people working for the Greater Paris in a period of 1 year with the same question. And there's no disappointment. At this part, I mean, it's 100% gain. Then if you take one by one, you have, of course, the most traditional ones that are not surprising at all. Rogers, Castro, Grandbach. Despite the quality of their work, I don't say there's no quality, I say it's not surprising. Okay, it's not the same thing. And then you have people like Seiki, which is absolutely, and Finn Gaipel that are really going a bit ahead. Actually, the foreigners were better off than the French. Yeah. Why? Because French and Germans and Italians, from their education, are better prepared to the greater scale questions, to the big scale questions. They have already had such questions, such projects in their career, either in the office or at school. The French education excludes it up to recently these scales, at least for these people's generation, for sure. So we were not necessarily disappointed, we were just not surprised. And then, of course, you have a series of values. You know that you want some innovation, but you don't know where it's going to come from. So we have bits and pieces of innovative questions and answers here and there, and we create our own collage afterwards. Actually, what I'm showing you is the collage that I'm showing again and again in schools and all over the world to show at what point things have gone. Globally speaking, the procedure is very surprising, very innovative in itself. It's not by accident that the Moscow mayor just copied the whole thing a few months ago, and they launched the Greater Moscow project, actually with the same people as here. They took some French and Kochas and others. So there's no doubt about the value of the overall process. It's just that we need more time, more money, and a better encadrement, better monitoring of the whole thing, with more people around us and all that. But given if you think that all this costed not more than €1 million, it's absolutely surprising. So you had groups of say 10 to 15 people working for a year for €200,000. If you take off the VAT, you are to 180 and 160,000 euros. If you divide it by 15 or by 10, say 10 people, you have 16,000 euros for 10 months. So you have 1,600 euros per month salary for each one of them, and they're all engineers, architects, researchers, and all that. It's a joke. You understand? It's impressive that they did all this work for so little money. Of course, you have knowledge. Yeah. Don't invent everything.
And what about
Next step. For the, you're talking about the 15 architects that were selected.
Well, the 15 architects on the program is
It's going to be useful to do that. The question is that you cannot repeat. It's like Shrek number 3, Shrek 3, Shrek 4, or Glass Ice Age 2, 3, 4. So at some point you lose interest. You have to change things. You cannot continue like that. It's exactly this. It's about changing pace, and they don't change pace. And to change pace, you have to reconsider the whole, to redesign the procedure. The procedure is not redesigned, actually. That's the problem. People are good. The 15 architects are okay.